My husband was kidnapped. The kidnappers did not want ransom. They wanted me to hold a funeral for myself. To save him, I did exactly that. The day the funeral ended, my husband came home. That was when my nightmare began. He went at me like a madman, beating me while I was pregnant. I cried and begged for mercy, asking him why. He said nothing. He just kept kicking me in the stomach over and over until I started bleeding. I watched my fully formed baby hit the floor right in front of me. In that moment, the physical pain and the sheer horror of it knocked me unconscious. When I woke up, I was lying beside a cremation furnace. My husband leaned in close, his face twisted and terrifying. From the day you held that funeral, you were as good as dead. The second I realized he was about to shove me into the furnace, I fought with everything I had and begged him to stop. His face only grew more warped, more monstrous. You don't deserve to carry my child. Sienna is the only one who deserves to be the mother of my child. A filthy bitch like you belongs in hell. The next instant, the flames swallowed me whole. I was in agony and I was drowning in despair. When I opened my eyes again, I was back at the exact moment I got the kidnappers' call. ****, your husband is with us. If you want him alive. That phone call was all the proof I needed. I really had come back. Hatred surged through me. I had just opened my mouth, ready to tell them to kill him, when a cold sweat broke out all over my body. In my last life, Julian Carter had staged his own kidnapping and forced me to hold a fake funeral so everyone would believe I was dead. Then he came back and tortured me to death. It had all been planned. He had meant to kill me and put Sienna Parker in my place. If I told them to go ahead and kill him, Julian would very likely have a backup plan waiting for me. He had more than enough power and ruthlessness to pull it off. Mrs. Carter, did you hear what I said or not? The kidnapper's voice yanked me back to reality. I answered him the same way I had in my last life and played along. Even after I hung up, my heart was still pounding wildly. I agreed to hold a funeral for myself, and that bought me time to run. Whatever else I could skimp on, getting away would take cash. I packed up every piece of jewelry and every luxury watch in the house, then booked the earliest international flight I could get. I had to disappear somewhere Julian would never find me. After that, I could figure out my next move. As for calling the police, I never seriously considered it. If I went to the cops, all Julian had to do was tell them it had been a prank, and no one would be able to touch him. Worse, he could keep himself completely out of it and have some disposable lackey take the blame for the call. So the best option right now was to run. Once I had everything valuable and easy to carry packed up, I opened the front door. The moment I did, I froze. Julian was standing outside, his eyes cold. Mrs. Carter, you didn't do what you were told on the phone. So where exactly were you planning to go? With a voice changer distorting his voice, Julian stood there like a nightmare made real. Before I could say a word, Julian drove his foot into me. The kick landed hard, and a sharp pain tore through my lower abdomen. Was I really going to relive the same despair, the same death, all over again? I had no idea where the strength came from, but I screamed and lunged at him. My resistance only earned me an even more vicious beating. It did not take long before I hit the floor again, bleeding again. Julian stood over me, looking down at me with naked disgust. You thought you could outsmart me. The whole house is wired with cameras. Every single thing you did was under my control. Natalie, if I want you dead, you don't get to live. I stared at him. If you really love Sienna, I'll agree to a divorce. Julian exploded. You've got some nerve asking me that. Grabbed whatever was within reach and hurled it at me without a second thought. Julian calmed down. Sienna rushed in and grabbed him, trying to stop him. Stop hitting her. If you keep going, you'll kill her. She dies that easily. That would be letting her off too easy, were the last words I heard before I blacked out. When I opened my eyes again, I was in a hospital bed, my hands and feet tied down. The room was familiar, and that made it even worse. I had stayed in this VIP suite before. It was in the private hospital owned by Julian's family. There was no escaping from here, and the news playing on the TV made everything even more hopeless. The wife of Julian Carter of Carter Group suffered a miscarriage after an accidental fall at home. She later died from severe bleeding. The screen, Julian was arranging my funeral. In my last life, he tricked me into holding my own funeral while I was still alive. In this life, my funeral was once again being held while I was still breathing. I was alive, and yet I knew it would only be a matter of days before he came to finish me off. After the fear came rage. I had been given a second chance, and I still could not protect my baby. I hated him. I hated all of this. I could not just sit there and wait to die. I could not make the same mistake again. I fought against the restraints until the skin on my wrists split open. The pain was sharp enough to cut to the bone, but I did not stop. If I wanted to live, I had to give it everything I had. If I could make it to the funeral now, I could expose Julian's plot. A few minutes later, with my left wrist torn open, I finally broke free. There was one good thing about this room. It was on the first floor. Outside the window was a garden. I had a real chance of getting out, but the moment I pushed the window open, I saw Julian step out of the shadows. You really thought you'd wake up and just happen to catch a live news broadcast? It was only a replay. Looked at me with a mocking smile. Or did you actually think that if I wanted to keep you locked up, you'd be able to break those restraints? His words crushed me all over again. I had been far too naive. When you are staring death in the face, it is impossible to think calmly. He had put cameras all over the house and watched my every move. In a private hospital that belonged to him, how could he possibly have left anything to chance? As Julian moved closer and closer, I made a decision. In that moment, I finally understood why people kill themselves. When a person is trapped in despair with no hope in sight, suicide can feel like a release. If I was going to die anyway, then I could not let him torture and humiliate me again. I hurled myself headfirst into the wall beside me, trying to end my life right there. The moment I threw myself at the wall, I realized Julian had anticipated even this. He had not left me even the slightest chance. He had already had the wall padded. Here, I'm the only one who decides when you die. Julian climbed in through the window, grabbed me by the hair, and slapped me hard across the face several times. Now isn't the time for you to die. Tied me back to the bed. That face of his was as familiar to me as my own, yet the expression on it was so cold it felt like I was looking at a stranger. Do you know what true despair is? It's when hope feels close enough to touch, and then it's ripped away from you all over again. Like when you thought you had a chance to escape just now. Julian, I want to know why, I said, looking straight at him. At least let me understand before I die. I don't believe you'd want me dead just because you stopped loving me. That's not who you are. I still believe that. Right then, I was willing to do anything to save myself, even if it meant flattering him and saying whatever he wanted to hear. He suddenly stepped forward and clamped a hand around my throat. You still haven't figured out why. You vicious bitch. Even cutting you into 1,000 pieces wouldn't be enough. Streamed down my face as I looked at him. In the past, the moment I cried, he would soften. He would coax me, ask what was wrong, and do everything he could to make me smile again. He used to say he would make me the happiest woman in the world. But now my tears meant nothing to him. If anything, they only made him angrier. You've got the nerve to cry. Just as I was starting to suffocate, Julian let go. Sienna was right. Letting you die that easily would be far too kind. Had been a time when he gave me anything I asked for. Now he treated her every word like gospel, even when it meant taking my life. Your funeral is already over. Everyone out there thinks you're dead. From now on, you'll spend every day drowning in despair. With that, Julian turned and left. Not long after he was gone, Sienna walked into the room. She had once been my closest friend. We had known each other since middle school. We went to the same high school, the same college, and even majored in the same field. We always had endless things to talk about. She had been my bridesmaid when I married Julian. When I married into wealth, I had even helped her land a job. I used to think our friendship would last forever. Now I knew that had only been my own wishful thinking. She was the real reason Julian had turned on me so viciously. I met her mocking gaze and said, Sienna, I don't know what I ever did so wrong that you ended up patting me like this. For the sake of what we used to be, can you let me go? Please. I wanted now was to live. I had to live. Sienna sat down and lowered her eyes, lightly stroking the ring finger of her left hand. She was wearing the wedding ring that used to belong to me. A moment later, she looked up. I came here today to tell you the truth. It's not that you didn't do enough. It's that you did everything too well. Middle school on, you were better than me at everything. I was already outstanding, but next to you I was nothing but the supporting role. You don't know what that feels like, and you don't understand that kind of hate. As long as you were alive, I could never feel at peace. Jealousy ruins people. I'm living proof of that. So I kept thinking about how to get rid of you, how to make you die in the most hopeless way possible without anyone suspecting a thing. I waited a long time for that chance, and eventually fate handed me one. She leaned down and whispered, curious how I pulled it off. Do you remember Lucas Bennett? Of course I remembered Lucas. Back in college, he had been the golden boy on campus, the kind of man every girl dreamed about. He had also been one of Sienna's pursuers. I had read every love letter Lucas supposedly wrote to her. They were heartfelt enough to make your chest ache. Sienna had even asked me to help her write replies, so I knew all about what I thought was their tangled love story. They had sounded inseparable in those letters, which was why I had never understood why Sienna rejected him right before graduation. After that, Lucas left town. What I understood even less was why, with someone as exceptional as Lucas pursuing her, she still wanted to fight me for Julian. Sienna kept talking. The truth is, Lucas never wrote a single one of those letters to me. He was writing to you the whole time. I was just the one passing them along. I was also the one who told him you didn't want your name showing up in the letters. I glared at her, wanting to tear her mouth apart, but my hands and feet were tied and I could do nothing. Sienna went on. First you lost Lucas, then you got Julian. I hated you for that. They were both so incredible, so why did they both have to want you? So all those letters between you and Lucas ended up in Julian's office under Lucas's name. Tell me, how could he not hate you after that? My mind went blank with a loud buzz. At last, I understood where Julian's hatred had come from, but Sienna was not done. If that had been all, I was afraid Julian still wouldn't hate you enough, so I made up another story. I told him I'd always been in love with him, and that I asked you to pass my letters on to him, but you never did. I told him you wanted both Lucas and Julian, and that you resented me for loving Julian too. I told him that after graduation, when you personally examined me, you deliberately damaged my uterus so badly it had to be removed. That day, I put on a tear-streaked, pitiful act. Julian was furious over your betrayal, then comforted me because he was kind. That night, one thing led to another, and we ended up in bed together. Thinking about the look on Julian's face while I was telling him all that, I almost want to hand myself an Oscar. As she spoke, Sienna untied me. I'm giving you a chance now. Go ahead and tell Julian everything. Do you think he'll believe you or me? Footsteps sounded outside. Julian was probably on his way back. My mind raced, searching through everything Sienna had just said for something I could use against her. Ah, Sienna suddenly shrieked. She snatched up a fruit knife and sliced her own arm. Julian, help me, help me. She stumbled backward, staring at me in terror. Julian rushed into the room, and the moment he saw that scene, his eyes went bloodshot. Julian, listen to me, I said, looking at him and trying to get the truth out. He stepped forward and slapped me across the face. Just now, Sienna was in tears telling me that you two used to be best friends. She admitted she hated you for what you did to her, but she still begged me not to hurt you anymore. She came here to let you go, and you poisonous bitch actually attacked her. Sienna, don't worry. I won't let her off this time. I'm ending this now. That's not what happened, I said quickly. Sienna made the whole thing up. Didn't she claim her uterus was removed? I grabbed onto the one opening I had found. If she gets examined at a hospital, the truth will come out. Slap cracked across my face as Julian hit me again. She's already been hurt enough because of you, and now you want her dragged to a hospital for an exam. What kind of sick motive is this? Are you trying to rip open her wounds and rub salt in them? Sienna cried out through her tears. Julian, do what she said. Take me to the hospital and check. See whether I lied. I swear I'd never deceive you the way Natalie Hayes did. Sienna, I believe you. Don't worry. I won't let this vicious woman hurt you ever again. Julian did not give me another chance to speak. He tied me up, sealed my mouth shut with tape, and threw a white sheet over me. Very soon, I felt the temperature around me start to rise again. I was back in front of the cremation furnace once again. Natalie, I'm going to burn you to ashes. Julian yanked the sheet off, forcing me to look straight at the furnace and watch as I was pushed closer and closer to it. I could not speak. All I could do was look at him and cry. Just like in my last life, he showed no mercy at all, and I was pushed closer and closer to the mouth of the cremation furnace. My terror of death was so overwhelming that I blacked out from fear. When I opened my eyes again, I was lying in a hospital bed. Beside me sat a man with a gentle, refined air. It was Lucas Bennett. He sat at my bedside with reddened eyes. He had clearly been crying. The moment he saw I was awake, he grabbed my hand. Natalie, not this time. I won't let you suffer again. I'm still alive. Lucas nodded emphatically. He told me that 6 hours earlier, a whole set of memories had suddenly appeared in his mind. That was when I realized I was not the only one who had come back. I broke down sobbing in Lucas's arms. I want to leave this place. I want to go as far away as possible. Made arrangements immediately. By the time I boarded the plane, Julian, who had been knocked unconscious by Lucas, finally woke up. Next to him was a phone Lucas had left behind. It contained the whole truth. As Julian watched everything on it, his fists clenched so tightly that his knuckles turned white. He slammed his fists into the wall again and again. Blood covered his fingers, but he still would not stop. No, the last video on the phone showed the cremation furnace engulfed in flames, along with shrill, agonized screams. In the version Lucas had given him, Lucas had made it there in time, but he had failed to save me. At the end of the video, Lucas said through tears, "Julian, I wanted to call the police and have you brought to justice, but Natalie said she didn't blame you." Lost his mind. He started smashing his head against the wall. "Natalie, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." He kept going until his head was split open and blood ran down his face. Only then did he finally understand what he had done. He apologized over and over, sobbing so hard it sounded like his heart was tearing apart. "Julian, don't scare me like this." Came rushing over as soon as she heard Julian had been hospitalized after getting hurt. The moment she saw the scene in front of her, panic flashed through her. When Julian heard her voice, he turned and stared at her. His eyes were bloodshot in a way she had never seen before. They burned with overwhelming hatred. "Julian, what's wrong? What happened? Who did this to you? We should call the police." Threw the phone at her. "Watch it yourself." Hannah had no idea what was going on, so she hurried to look. The second she saw what was on the screen, all the color drained from her face. "Julian, listen to me. Natalie is framing me. She knows you'll never forgive what she did, so now she's trying to set me up." "Is that so?" Julian grabbed her by the throat. "Didn't you say Natalie hurt you so badly that your uterus had to be removed? Then let's go get you checked right now." An hour later, the results came back. Sienna's uterus was completely intact. Julian slapped himself again and again across the face. "Natalie, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." It would have taken was a medical exam to expose Sienna's lie. Yet he had chosen to believe her instead of trusting his own wife. Natalie had even pointed that out before he hurt her, and he still had not listened. "Natalie, don't worry. I'll make that bitch Sienna pay for what she's done." Turned to look at Sienna. She had already collapsed to the floor, pale and shaking with fear. "Julian, Natalie is dead. I can take care of you in her place. I can take even better care of you. Julian, I really do love you. What makes you think you could ever replace Natalie? You're not even worth a single strand of her hair. Didn't you say you couldn't get pregnant? Didn't you say never being able to have a child was the greatest regret of your life? Well then, how about I make you pregnant?" Sienna's heart leapt. As long as she got pregnant with Julian's child, there would still be hope for her. But half an hour later, she regretted everything. Julian had no intention of touching her himself. The men he sent to her were diseased, some with syphilis and others with HIV. Not one of them was normal. The hospital room where I had once been imprisoned became Sienna's own private hell. She lived in terror every day, never knowing what kind of torment would be waiting for her tomorrow. Half a year passed like that. Sienna became pregnant. She did not know who the father was, but she was still grateful for the pregnancy itself. From the moment it was confirmed, Julian stopped sending people in to torment her. Instead, he hired specialists to look after her and nurse her body back to health. She began to see hope again. She thought that after 6 months of punishing her, Julian's anger had finally burned itself out. Her belly grew bigger day by day. Sometimes, when the baby moved inside her, a little bulge would press up visibly against her stomach. So this was the miracle of carrying a life. So this was the joy of becoming a mother. By then, Sienna no longer dared hope that she and Julian could ever be together. All she did was wait day and night for the little life inside her to be born. But one day, Julian walked in holding a scalpel, and Sienna panicked. "I killed the baby Natalie and I were having with my own hands. Do you have any idea what it feels like to lose a child?" "Julian, please don't, please don't. I know I was wrong. Please let me go, okay? Please spare me. I know I'm guilty. Once I give birth, I'll pay for what I did to Natalie with my life. Just please let this child live." No, her shrill pleas, her desperate begging, and her hysterical cursing filled the room. "Sienna, do you know how much pain Natalie was in back then? Do you know how hopeless she felt? You're crazy. You're insane," Sienna screamed through her tears. "You're the reason I became a madman," Julian said, brandishing the scalpel. Strapped to the hospital bed, Sienna cried soundlessly as she watched the child leave her body and watched the baby lose all signs of life. She watched Julian vent his rage right in front of her. She wanted to die, just like Natalie once had. But back then, she herself had told Julian that once a person tried to kill themselves and survived, they would fear death even more afterward. It was basic survival instinct. And now Julian was using that very truth against her. The baby was dead, but Sienna still wanted to live. She still wanted to beg Julian for mercy. But she was growing more and more afraid. At last, she understood what Julian intended. She finally understood why he was still keeping her alive. Julian was waiting. He was waiting for the anniversary of Natalie's death. On that day, Sienna saw the cremation furnace. It was the death she had chosen for Natalie, and now she was about to suffer the same fate herself. She struggled with everything she had, grinding her bound wrists and ankles raw until they bled. It did no good. Julian slowly pushed her toward the furnace, inch by inch, bringing her closer and closer. She could already feel the heat pouring off it. Her feet went in first. She let out a shrill scream and begged for mercy over and over. She stared at Julian, tears streaming down her face, but he only looked back at her with a twisted smile. A moment later, the screaming stopped. Julian collapsed to the floor. Even with Sienna dead, Natalie was never coming back to him. Julian cleaned himself up, changed clothes, and went to Natalie's grave. The grave that had once been part of her staged funeral had become the only thing he had left to hold on to. He brought a knife with him and sat in front of the headstone, rambling on and on. Killing Sienna had been the only thing that kept him going through the past year. Now all he wanted was to join Natalie, find her in the next world, and beg for her forgiveness. "Natalie, I don't know if you'll ever forgive me, but I miss you too much. Wait for me. I'll be there soon. If there really is another world, I'll never let anyone hurt you there. If there really is another world, I'll find you, and I'll find Sienna too, so I can make her pay again. Mr. Carter." Mr. Dawson, the vice chairman of Carter Group, hurried over and said as he looked at Julian, "It's been a year. Mr. Carter, you need to pull yourself together. You've been absent from the company this whole year, and a lot of major projects are already running into trouble. Mrs. Carter is gone, but she would never want to see the company collapse." Julian waved him off. "You should go. I want a little more time with Natalie." Over the past year, countless people had tried to talk sense into Julian, but he had never managed to pull himself out of it. No one on the outside knew that Natalie had died because of him, and he had no idea how he could ever say something like that out loud. Everything happening to him now was self-inflicted. He had no one to blame but himself. Mr. Dawson let out a sigh. He was just about to leave when his phone rang. His expression changed, confusion filling his eyes. He glanced at Natalie's headstone, weighing whether or not he should tell Julian what he had just heard. A moment later, Mr. Dawson made his decision. "Mr. Carter, I just got a call. Lucas Bennett from Bennett Group is coming to invest in our city." Julian did not react. Mr. Dawson spoke again. "He came with his wife. Did Mrs. Carter have a twin sister? This is a photo of Mrs. Bennett. She looks a lot like Mrs. Carter." "What?" Julian snatched the phone out of his hand. The moment he saw the photo, it felt like something exploded in his head. "It's Natalie. It's Natalie. She's alive. You actually took Natalie away and hid her from me." Julian pulled out the phone Lucas had left behind that year and bolted out of the cemetery like a madman. After a professional analysis, it was confirmed that the final video Lucas had left on the phone had been fabricated. "Natalie is alive. She really is alive. Wait for me. I'm coming to find you right now." That night, at the Grand Regency Hotel, the city threw a lavish reception to welcome Lucas and me for our investment project. The banquet was about to begin, and the crowd was already buzzing. A lot of people turned toward the entrance. The second they saw Julian, quite a few of them went over to greet him. Julian had not attended a single public event in a year. His sudden reappearance immediately drew attention from everyone in the room. But Julian ignored every person who tried to speak to him and came straight toward me. "Natalie, come home with me," he said, staring at me with naked longing in his eyes. I looked back at him, hatred surging inside me. "The Natalie you knew was killed by your own hands. When I left back then, Lucas had taken me away and helped me through months of counseling. It had taken nearly a year for me to claw my way out of that darkness. I had not come back this time just to invest. I had come back for revenge." Julian looked at my cold expression in silence for a moment. Then he dropped to his knees. Everyone around us froze. Julian was the richest man in the city. He was the youngest and most successful legend this city had ever seen. At my funeral, countless people had cried for him, and my sudden reappearance had already left plenty of people confused. What none of them understood even more was why a man like him was kneeling in front of me. "Natalie, I really do know I was wrong. From now on, I'll treat you 100 times better, 1,000 times better. Give you everything I have. Please come home with me. For the past year, I've thought about you every single day. There hasn't been a second when I didn't. Natalie, I'm a monster. I never should have believed Sienna. Please forgive me. I'll prove to you how much I love you. I swear I will." That moment, Mr. Dawson stepped forward. He looked at me, stayed silent for a few seconds, and finally spoke. "Mrs. Carter, I don't know what happened between you and Mr. Carter. I understand even less why you would fake your death and deceive him like this, but I do think you owe him an apology. For the past year, Mr. Carter has been completely broken because of you. He hasn't taken part in managing the company for a full year. He drinks every day just to get through it. We old employees have watched it happen, and it's been painful for all of us. I honestly don't understand it. Mr. Carter treated you so well, so why would you do something like this? Was it all because of Lucas? Carter Group may not be bigger than Bennett Group, but Mr. Carter loves you far more than Lucas ever could." The moment he said that, the other longtime executives from Carter Group started chiming in too. "Mrs. Carter, Mr. Carter's feelings for you were obvious to everyone. In our eyes, the two of you were always the perfect couple. None of us understand why you would do something to hurt him like this. Do you even realize who the man kneeling in front of you is? He's the head of Carter Group. He's the richest man in the city. Have you ever seen him humble himself like this for anyone? Natalie, you owe us an explanation today." "That's right. We're getting an explanation today, or Lucas can forget about investing here." "Enough." Julian roared so loudly that the room fell silent. "This is my fault, all of it. None of this is Natalie's fault." Looked at me. "Natalie, come home with me. Let's forget the past and start over." I lowered my head and whispered in his ear, "I can't forget the past because I came back from the dead and you already killed me once. So what happens next? Are you going to admit what you did yourself, or do you want me to tell everyone here the truth?" Julian, who had been kneeling on the floor, shot to his feet and lunged at Lucas. "No one gets to steal my woman. No one. I've already set my heart on you. You can only be my wife." Roared the words out. Lucas had trained in boxing. It only took him a couple of moves to knock Julian to the floor. Even on the ground, Julian kept shouting curses. "This outsider is trying to steal my wife." The moment he said that, several people from Carter Group rushed forward. The bodyguards Lucas had brought with him moved in too. The whole room descended into chaos in an instant. Julian took advantage of the confusion and charged at me, but Lucas got in front of me before he could reach me. "Natalie, come home with me." Julian stared at me as if he wanted to burn a hole through me. "If you don't come back with me, I'll fight Lucas to the bitter end. I swear I'll take you back from him." "Julian, you're a coward," I said, looking straight at him. "You had the nerve to do it, but not the nerve to own it. Do you really think you're walking out of here today?" I picked up the microphone. "Everyone, please settle down and look at the screen." There had been surveillance cameras installed near the cremation furnace at Sienna's request. She had wanted to watch me burn, and Lucas knew that. The day he saved me, he had already secured that footage. After that, he made a few more preparations of his own, placing cameras in the places Julian frequented. The screen at the banquet played the entire sequence, from Julian's attempt to kill me to Lucas rescuing me and taking me away. The footage that followed showed what Julian had done after he woke up. That included the moment he killed Sienna's unborn child and in the end pushed Sienna into the cremation furnace herself. I turned to Mr. Dawson, the vice chairman of Carter Group. "Mr. Dawson, do you understand now why Julian got down on his knees for me?" Mr. Dawson's face turned grim. He looked at Julian and said, "Julian, you've destroyed the company." The room erupted in curses aimed at Julian. "You sick excuse for a human being. You tried to murder your own wife for your mistress. You motherfucking piece of trash. You deserve to be cut to pieces." I must have been blind. "I used to think you were a decent man, but you're nothing but an animal." Julian stared at the hard evidence, his face deathly pale. He looked for an opening to run, but Lucas's people were already guarding every exit. There was nowhere left for him to go. The police arrived soon after and took Julian away. Before the case went to trial, Julian repeatedly asked to see me. I refused every single time. I did not want to see him again. I only wanted him dead as soon as possible. 3 months later, Julian's case went to court and he was sentenced to death. After the sentence was handed down, Mr. Dawson came to see me. "Julian transferred all of his shares to your name," he said. "These are the share transfer documents. Take a look." I sat there in silence, looking at the papers Mr. Dawson had brought. He stayed silent too, but just before he left, he still could not help saying one last thing. "MS, Hayes, I know this is asking a lot, but Julian really does understand what he did wrong. Gone over everything that happened in this case. He was only misled for a time. The execution is in 2 months. You know he'd want you there to see him off. The day Julian was executed, I did not go. I would never forgive him. I never would. I heard that right up until the very end. He was still saying he was sorry. But everything that happened to him was what he deserved. It was the punishment he had earned. On the day he was executed, Lucas and I were at the hospital, waiting for a new life to come into the world. It was our child. Lucas also made me understand that real love never chooses to hurt. Even when it cannot have the one it loves, it still chooses to protect them quietly. This is Listening Novel. We appreciate you spending your time with us. If you enjoyed today's story, please like and subscribe for more stories, and stay tuned for what's next.